Hi guys, I'm Sam. I'm a first year med student studying med school in Australia, and you're watching From Ed to Med. So this week is our third week of semester 2, and finally we got our results. Our results from our exams of first semester. I passed! I passed everything! It was great. It was really, really good. To explain a bit about the marking system, a pass mark changes based on every question on every test, so they call it the sum of minima. The sum of minima usually, well, from my experience, has been around 65 to 70%, so if you get over that, you've passed. And the first year is all about passing. So no matter if you get 99% or just on the sum of minima, you've passed and you get through. So it's been really, really gratifying to actually get through, to have that sheet of paper pop up and say, yes, everything's green, everything's passed, because it was something I was really worried about. Coming from a non-science background, coming from knowing nothing, to being able to pass my first semester of med was a really good experience because it really made me feel that I made the right decision in going into med. And it made me feel that I do belong there. There's a lot of that going through a lot of first year med students in general, whether from a science background or not. It's called a bit of imposter syndrome. You know, you get into med and you struggle so hard and long to get in, and it's really competitive to get in. And then when you're there, you're constantly worried that you're not good enough, you're not meant to be there, and someone soon is going to find out. So it's a bit of a relief to have the results and say, no, wait, you do actually belong here. You are capable of doing it. It's just a reminder. So really good news is that I've passed my first semester. And I'm sure it only gets easier from here on in, right? Nothing more to learn. Yeah. So we've already started our teaching and learning in second semester. And this semester is called the systems block. So last semester focused on the introduction to the science of medicine. So every week we tended to do a new system of the body and do it in a very kind of overview kind of way, talk about pathologies, all that sort of stuff, all the pharmacology, but do it in a way that here's your base knowledge, here's what you need to know to be able to do the rest of this course. Now that we've done that and we're all, well, in theory, on the same level as each other, we move forward and we go into systems. In systems, we spend a couple of weeks on each system of the body. We're not doing all the systems of the body because obviously we can't fit that all into a semester, and we're doing it a little bit more detail than we did last semester. So at the moment, this is our third week now, and we're still on the respiratory system. We're moving on after that to the gastrointestinal system, and then after that into the renal system, and that'll bring us up to the end of year and our final exams in November. It's been a really good opportunity to actually have an in-depth look at some of these systems and to be able to use the knowledge from last semester. So now I don't have to worry about defining every single word. Look, there's a lot of words I still have to define, but I have a base knowledge to work from now, which is really helpful, and I've talked to a lot of students who feel the same way. So now that we know the basics, we can actually go forward using that terminology and be on the same page to be able to move forward from there. So it's really, really good. In anatomy's kicked back into gear, so we're back in the labs. I think our third day in, which is, you know, a good reminder back to our first term. We haven't done anatomy for about 10 weeks now, so coming back into it is a bit of a shock to the system. Shock to the systems. Anyway, so going into anatomy this semester is really good too because we're spending a lot of time on each system. We had a little bit of time last semester to spend on the cardiovascular system, and we actually spent about 3 weeks looking at that in general, and that was one of my favourite units from anatomy because we actually got to spend time. We spent weeks on it and we actually got familiar with the parts we were looking at and were able to move forward. So doing the same thing now with the respiratory system is really, really good. Next week we actually start our first dissection. So not only we're not going to have just pre-prepared cadavers or pieces of cadavers in front of us, we will actually have a cadaver amongst a group of 8 or 9 people who we'll stay with for the rest of the year, and that will be our cadaver who we'll work with and work on. and learn about the different systems together. So I'm really looking forward to that experience. Really practical, really hands-on, and hopefully get a lot out of it. In addition to dissection, something else that's new this semester is our DLEP. So in our DLEP, which is our law and ethics part of our subject, we're doing debates. So every week there are a series of teams, so they're automatically assigned, randomly assigned. We get to know who our teams are and our topics are 2 weeks beforehand, and every week they run about 5 or 6 debates in a 3-hour session on a Wednesday. The topics are really, really good. Some of them are really challenging. So, for example, things like, should a 75-year-old be operated on or be allowed to do invasive surgery on, for or against? Or some topics might be more along the lines of talking about debates surrounding abortion. So they're really kind of weighty issues, and the idea is we research into them, look at the legality, look at the ethics, and be able to come up and fight for one side. Not only that, we get to know the other side of the argument quite well too. So it's a really good opportunity for us to really delve into those issues a lot more. So with dissection, with our debates, it's a really new feel for a semester, but it's also got the same things that I loved about last semester, learning about all this new knowledge, all this, the way the body works. I'm still constantly amazed at, and I'm still loving what I'm learning. I think the big takeaway from last semester was how to learn. So I know what I need to study for, how to study for it, and I know what I need to put more time into. For example, our anatomy. In our anatomy, we get prac notes, so it's usually probably about 10 to 15 pages worth of notes to go through before each anatomy session. Now, I know that probably that'll take me about 4 or 5 hours to go through those notes beforehand, but I know that if I do that beforehand, I find the prac session so much more beneficial. I can actually go in there with that background knowledge and know what I'm looking at and be able to get a really good handle on it. Similar with the learning objectives, the LOs for our PBL classes, it's been really good opportunity to go through all of those again, and to also refine the process of when during the week I get them done, when during the week I revise them, and how much I look back on them. The revision for the exam also taught me how to study better for medicine, and what, I guess, the buzzword is high yield. So what is high yield and what is not high yield in terms of exams? That's, if you go to any med school, I'm pretty sure you're going to run into that high yield term. I feel at the moment that, as I mentioned before, I feel I'm where I'm meant to be at the moment, which is something that was bothering me a lot. I gave up a lot and still am sacrificing a lot to be in medicine, which I'm sure is the case for so many of you out there and so many of people who are in medicine. And this is only the beginning of it, and it's only going to increase. To make the sacrifices I have so far and to move from a career which I was doing well in and had a real love for was always something that weighed on my mind. And the acknowledgement that I can pass the tests, that I can do the exams, and that I love what I'm doing is something that I feel really comforting and really good to know as I move forward. Guys, speaking of moving forward, time to get back to the study. So if you have any questions, and specifically if you want to know anything in particular about med school, I mean, I can only tell you about my med school in general, but I'd love to, and that's what I set up the channel for. So helping people find out what med school is about, what's the real process of it, how does the day-to-day life look. If you'd like to know anything in particular, please let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're interested in finding out more about how we do at med school in Australia. Alright, I'll catch you next time, guys.